Imagine this. It's the early days of 1942, and the Pacific Ocean is a vast chessboard where empires clash. High above the churning seas, a squadron of sleek Japanese fighters streaks toward their prey. These are the Mitsubishi A6M Zeros, the undisputed kings of the sky. Their pilots, hardened by years of training and early victories, share a cocky laugh over the radio. They've heard rumors of a new American plane, some bulky thing called the Hellcat. It looks like a fat wildcat, one chuckles. Easy pickings. But oh how wrong they were. Within months, that fat fighter would turn laughter into terror, sweeping the Zeros from the heavens like autumn leaves in a gale. This is the story of how the Grumman F6F Hellcat clawed its way to dominance, flipping the script on the Pacific War and sealing the fate of Japan's aerial empire. Welcome to our deep dive into one of aviation history's greatest comebacks. I'm your guide through this tale of ingenuity, bravery, and brutal dogfights. We'll uncover why those Japanese aces felt so invincible at first, what wizardry the American engineers pulled off to create the Hellcat, and how this rugged beast shredded the myth of the unbeatable Zero. Buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride through smoke-filled skies and turning tides. Let's rewind to the beginning to understand the Zero's reign of terror. The Mitsubishi A6M, nicknamed Zero by the Allies for its naval designation, wasn't just a plane, it was a revolution. Designed in the late 1930s by a team led by Jiro Horikoshi, it first took to the skies in 1939. By the time Japan launched its surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, the Zero had already proven itself a monster over China, where it outflew and outgunned everything the Chinese Air Force threw at it. What made it so deadly? Picture a fighter that's light as a feather, but strikes like a katana. Weighing in at just over 5,000 pounds empty, the Zero boasted an incredible power-to-weight ratio thanks to its 950 horsepower Nakajima Sakai engine. It could climb like a rocket, turn on a dime, and fly farther than any rival, up to 1,200 miles on internal fuel alone. In those opening salvos of the war, the Zero's pilots were the elite of the Imperial Japanese Navy. Trained rigorously, many with hundreds of hours under their belts, they flew with a samurai's precision. At Pearl Harbor, Zero strafed battleships and shot down American planes before pilots could even scramble. In the Philippines, Malaya, and the Dutch East Indies, they dominated Allied fighters like the Brewster Buffalo and Curtiss P-40, racking up kill ratios that seemed impossible, sometimes 12-to-1. The Zero's agility allowed it to loop and roll around heavier opponents, picking them off with its mix of two 7.7mm machine guns and two 20mm cannons. Allied pilots nicknamed it the Zeke, but there was no affection in that name, just fear. As one American flyer put it after a brutal encounter, it was like trying to catch smoke. But every king has a weakness, and the Zero's was baked into its design. To achieve that featherweight agility and range, Japanese engineers sacrificed armor and self-sealing fuel tanks. No bulletproof glass for the pilot, no heavy plating around vital areas. Hit a Zero in the right spot, and it could burst into flames like a matchstick. Early on, this didn't matter much because the Zero's speed, topping out at around 331 miles per hour, and maneuverability kept it out of harm's way. Japanese doctrine emphasized offensive strikes over survival, echoing the Bushido Code where protection was seen as weakness. For the first year of the war, this philosophy paid off in spades. From the Indian Ocean raid to the Battle of the Coral Sea, Zeros ruled the roost, giving Japan control of the skies and allowing their carriers to project power unchecked. Yet, even as the Zeros danced victoriously, storm clouds gathered. American forces, bloodied but unbowed, began dissecting the enemy's wonder weapon. In June 1942, during the Japanese invasion of the Aleutian Islands, a Zero, piloted by Tadayoshi Koga, crash-landed on Akutan Island after being hit over Dutch Harbor. Miraculously intact, this Akutan Zero was recovered by U.S. forces and shipped stateside for testing. Engineers at Wright Field pored over it, flying it in mock dogfights to uncover its secrets. They learned the Zero's strengths, tight turns at low speeds, but also its Achilles heels. It stiffened up in high-speed dives and lacked the robustness for prolonged combat. This intelligence couldn't have come at a better time. Back in the U.S., Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation was already hard at work on a successor to their F6F Wildcat, which had held the line against the Zero, but often at great cost. The Wildcat was tough, but it was outclassed in speed and climb rate. Grumman's team, led by legends like Leroy Grumman and his engineers, knew they needed something that could not only match the Zero, but beat it at its own game, while surviving the hits. Enter the F6F Hellcat. Development kicked off in earnest in 1941, but the Akutan Zero's insights accelerated tweaks. Contrary to myth, the Hellcat wasn't a direct copy. Its design was well underway, evolving from the Wildcat's blueprint, but supersized and supercharged. The prototype, F6F-1, first flew on June 26, 1942, just weeks after the Battle of Midway. Grumman poured everything into it. A massive Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine cranking out 2,000 horsepower, giving it the grunt to haul more weight without sacrificing performance. They armored the cockpit, added self-sealing fuel tanks that could plug bullet holes on the fly, and beefed up the airframe to withstand dives that would shake a Zero apart. Speed was key. The Hellcat topped out at 380 miles per hour, leaving the Zero's 331 miles per hour in the dust. It climbed faster too, 3,500 feet per minute versus the Zero's 3,100. Firepower? The Hellcat packed 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns, each spitting 13 rounds per second, with enough ammo for sustained bursts. Compare that to the Zero's lighter armament. Those two cannons were punchy but ammo limited, and the machine guns were pea shooters by comparison. Survivability was the game changer. While a single burst could torture Zero, Hellcat shrugged off damage that would doom lesser planes. Pilots recounted limping home with engines shot full of holes, thanks to that rugged build. But the Hellcat wasn't just about raw stats. It was pilot-friendly. Easy to land on carriers, forgiving in stalls, and stable in gunnery runs. Grumman produced them at a blistering pace, over 12,000 by war's end, flooding the fleet with these beasts. By late 1943, as the first squadrons deployed aboard carriers like the USS Yorktown, Japanese pilots started noticing something new in the skies. At first, they dismissed it. Just another Yankee crate, they'd say, mistaking its silhouette for the familiar Wildcat. Laughter echoed in their cockpits, until the Hellcats pounced. Picture the scene over the Solomon Islands in September 1943. Japanese Zeros from Rabaul swarmed to intercept American raids. They're confident, twisting into their signature loops. But the Hellcats, flying in disciplined formations, used their superior speed to boom and zoom. Dive in fast, unleash a hail of .5 cal fire, then climb away before the Zeros can turn. One Japanese pilot, Saburo Sakai, a Zero ace with dozens of kills, later recalled his shock. This new fighter was faster, climbed better, and its guns tore through us like paper. In those early clashes, Hellcats racked up kills without mercy, their armor letting pilots press attacks that Zeros couldn't survive.
The real turning point came in June 1944 at the Battle of the Philippine Sea, what history calls the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. Japan, desperate to halt the American advance toward their home islands, launched a massive carrier strike with over 400 planes, many Zeros among them. Admiral Mark Mitcher's Task Force 58 met them with 15 carriers and nearly 900 aircraft, including swarms of Hellcats. On June 19, waves of Japanese attackers barreled in. Hellcat pilots, vectored by radar-directed controllers, intercepted them miles from the fleet. It was a slaughter. Hellcats dove from altitude, using their speed advantage to pick off Zeros one by one. Lieutenant Alex Braichew, flying off USS Lexington, downed 6 in 8 minutes, his .50 cals ripping through fragile fuselages. By day's end, over 300 Japanese planes lay at the bottom of the sea, with American losses at just 29. Japanese pilots, many novices rushed into service after losses at Midway and Guadalcanal, found their Zeros no match. The Hellcat's firepower and survivability shone. One pilot returned with 177 holes in his plane, yet lived to tell the tale. This wasn't a fluke. Fast forward to October 1944, the Battle of Leyte Gulf, the largest naval battle ever. Here, two Hellcat aces, Commander David McCampbell and Lieutenant Roy Rushing, set a record. On October 24, scrambling from USS Essex, they tangled with 60 Japanese planes over the Philippine Sea. McCampbell bagged 9, Rushing 6 in a furious 90-minute furball. Zeros twisted desperately, but the Hellcat's superior climb and dive speeds let them dictate the fight. McCampbell later said, "I just kept turning inside them until they made a mistake." Their haul, 15 kills in one mission, a testament to the Hellcat's edge.
Even in the Formosa air battle earlier that month, Hellcats from Task Force 38 ravaged Japanese airfields, downing hundreds in 3 days of intense combat. Zeros launched frantic counterattacks, but the Hellcats' radar pickets and coordinated tactics turned the skies into a graveyard for Japanese aviation. By 1945, the tide had fully turned. Hellcats not only cleared the air, but supported ground ops, strafing kamikaze bases and covering invasions at Iwo Jima and Okinawa. Japan's once elite pilot corps was decimated, replaced by green recruits who couldn't exploit the Zero's strengths. The Hellcat's overall kill tally? A staggering 5,155 enemy aircraft, with a 19-to-1 ratio. 13 Hellcats lost for every 247 kills against fighters. Against Zeros specifically, it was even more lopsided. So what's the legacy of this Iron Cat? The F6F Hellcat didn't just win battles, it won the air war in the Pacific. It allowed American carriers to operate with impunity, paving a way for island-hopping campaigns that brought the war to Japan's doorstep. Post-war, Hellcats served in Korea and with foreign navies, but their World War II feats cemented them as perhaps the greatest carrier fighter ever. Grumman's Ace Maker created over 300 aces, including legends like McCampbell with 34 kills. In the end, those Japanese pilots' laughter faded into the roar of double wasp engines. The Hellcat taught a harsh lesson. In war, adaptability trumps tradition. It wasn't flashy, but it was effective. A blue-collar brawler that outlasted the elegant samurai. Thanks for joining this journey through history's skies. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe for more tales of wartime wonders, and share your thoughts in the comments. What other WW2 aircraft showdowns should we cover next? Until then, keep looking up.